Emil Amok to you. Welcome to my Takeout, my Emil Amok's Takeout, my takes on all things considerable. I said I'd be around 2:30-ish, because usually I'm around at 2-ish. But we had a little internet issue. Who's sharing the cord? Who's sharing the fast Wi-Fi? Actually, you shouldn't be on Wi-Fi. You should be on direct, right to your router. And then you get all the fancy speeds that you're paying for. Otherwise, if you're on Wi-Fi, it's like half and half and half. Anyway, welcome. It's Tuesday as I speak. You might be hearing this on a replay. But, man, what a day. I mean, I've already been talking about Filipino American History Month almost every day for the last couple days. It's important. October only comes around once. It's still technically a shared month until the 15th with Hispanic Heritage Month. But that's heritage, right? This is Filipino American history, and there's a difference between history and heritage. Really, heritage is, what you pass on. It's like culture. History is like facts, dates, impacts of such occurrences, dates, facts. Yeah, because my father came in 1928 and something happened to him. That's history. It's impact. I inherited the history, which is why I came up with this idea, because I'd hit a birthday. This week is my birthday week, as I mentioned, and I just stopped counting. People say, "Oh, I hope you enjoy the day." It should be a good day, right? I mean, you're celebrating. I tend to be a little low key, but I did celebrate. I mean, I don't drink much anymore, so I celebrate. I'm with people I love. I speak to the people who mean something in my life, and it's meaningful. And and sometimes it's just like little exchanges, like through the internet. I got one of my favorite notices. Came from Richard Prince, the African-American journalist, writer. He writes journalisms. I've known Richard since 1989 when he was a columnist for the Rochester paper up there. And he wrote a column about me being at NPR. And he wished me a happy birthday on Facebook. I mention this because he went on. He had some things to say. It wasn't like, happy birthday, goodbye, happy birthday, I gotta go. He spent some time, and I want to thank him because he put in some thought here. He said, happy birthday, Emil Guillermo. Emil, a one-time NPR host, now based in the Bay Area. Oh, now if I have a little quibble, it's that one-time NPR host, not just a one-time NPR host, but the first Asian American to host one of the flagship national shows on NPR, all things considered. I mean, there wasn't an Asian American before me. Now, there certainly wasn't a Filipino American. I was the first Filipino American to host a national news program, which, I mean, I take as a distinction. I mean, if you climb the mountain only to get shot down, you'd still want to take that distinction. Hey, I was up there. And only because of, as I like to say, you can break all your glass ceilings, but the shards will kill you. The shards killed me. Oh, they didn't kill me. They set me back, but they didn't kill me. So Richard says, a one-time NPR host, now based in the Bay Area, Emil writes an opinion column for the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. He's right. ALDEF, AALDEF.org/blog. It offers the rarely heard perspective of a Filipino American. He's not kidding. I mean, there just aren't any Filipino Americans in the mainstream. You might hear them in the ethnic press, which is where I tend to have my pieces are in the ethnic press. Oakland Post, Inquirer.net has run my Amok columns for like 12 years. The Philippine News used to. I mean, the Filipino American voice. And we're talking about Filipino American history, and let's talk about that. So Richard says one example was a piece he wrote in June when the Supreme Court struck down the use of race in college admissions. Quote, Chief Justice John Roberts was at Harvard the same time I was there, Emil wrote, and I realized it had failed, or I had failed, in my original race mission back in the 70s. My mere presence at that school in Boston did not persuade young Roberts of the merits of diversity. What about the mutual benefits of having an underprivileged Filipino kid as part of the student body at Harvard? Because I was not just there to take, I was there to give to America's future leaders like Roberts. A real world understanding beyond white preppydom, and to help him understand the kind of empathy he'd need to have as a Chief Justice of the United States. End quote. Richard writes, Emil noted a loophole in Roberts' opinion. Nothing in this opinion should be construed as prohibiting universities from considering an applicant's discussion of how race affected his or her life, be it through discrimination, inspiration, or otherwise, Roberts wrote. In other words, the student must be treated based on his or her experiences as an individual, not on the basis of race. There's the door. It's open. Talk about your experience, right? Emil concluded, quote, so you want to go to Harvard? Tell your story. That hasn't changed in 50 years. That's how I got in. There's no time limit on the legacy of experienced racism that's handed down. And Emil tells the story here, and he puts a link to something I said. Emil amplifies his column with one-man shows. If you were bashful before, he quotes me, don't be. It's time for all of us to tell our stories loudly. And then he puts a nice little blurb and part of a poster that I had where I had people write, or critics were blurbed out about my show, and they said, stand-up monologue rant, enjoy trying to keep pace with Guillermo's brilliant mind. Funny, poignant, that's what the Orlando Weekly said. And then there was keeps audiences engaged, Orlando Sentinel said that. Charismatic, Guillermo's life is one worth exploring, DC Metro Theater Arts. And more when I went up to New York in February of this year. So, God, and I read that. I didn't see it till toward the end of the day yesterday, and I was so taken by what Richard had to say. I mean, first of all, unsolicited, and there he was talking about what a Filipino-American voice in the media really is all about. And I know, because when I was there in Washington, and then when I left, I did talk shows in DC. I was at WRC in Washington, and also on a news channel. I was on News Channel 8 for a while. But I enjoyed my time in Washington, D.C., and then left to go do a talk show in California, because I thought California, I had to get back to California. Now, I don't know why I felt I had to get back to California. It was home. But now in retrospect, I think I might have, I should have said, I'll take the cold weather, because this is where the action was. I mean, the action was clearly in Washington and New York, at least for what I was doing in the media. But I enjoy what I'm doing now, and because of something like this, I could do my Emil Amok's Takeout, my micro talk show on the web, and I call it the secret podcast because I'm not out there really looking for, I mean, if an audience shows up, I do it, I post it, but I'm not doing this as a money-making venture. I'm not necessarily doing it for the exercise. I'm doing it for the expression of an Asian American Filipino voice out there. And the media this is about as, democratic a medium, the web. People can get it. You can see it live if you are on Facebook, fb.com/emilguillermo.media, or YouTube, the YouTube channel at EmilAmok1, on Twitter at EmilAmok, or you can just see the replays on amok.com. So thank you for all of you. I mean, there are people who said, hello, happy birthday, and then they would indicate, oh, they've got a thing they've produced on Netflix. So that's good. I'm going to see the Ben Fong Torres. I haven't seen it yet. I meant to a couple times, but now it's on Netflix. I'm going to see it. I love Ben. Ben's another Asian American in the media for a long time, and he was in that position where he was a DJ at first at KSAN, or maybe he was just always a rock and roll writer at Rolling Stone. But man, he's got a career. Ben Fong Torres, the writer, and the documentary. I mean, the people he rubbed elbows with. Anyway, the Netflix, it's on Netflix, the documentary. It's been out and had a theater run. But now that I know it's on Netflix, because the producer told me, as she wished me happy birthday, I'm going to go see it. Because I love Ben. I think I've told this story about, I was a disc jockey in Houston, and I think I was in an altered state. But I was interviewing Bonnie Raitt, and Ben was off in the corner taking notes because he was doing a big story on Bonnie Raitt. That's the first time I ever met Ben Fong Torres. I was like a 19-year-old DJ in Houston, Texas. Anyway. All right, other people wish me happy birthday who I knew from grade school. Joyce Van Veldhuizen. She knew me from grade school. Fourth grade. Fifth grade. She said happy birthday to me. Junior high, my friends. Tommy. Stoney. They all wish me happy birthday. I felt good. And then my college friends. Not my college friends. We're going to see you in a couple. You're going to come to Boston, right? I actually am going to Boston. I'm going to Boston to participate in a story slam. And a story slam is not quite the Emil Amok monologue experience. It's just a 5-minute story. But if you'd like to see Emil Amok, a sliver, a 5-minute story, I have free tickets. It's going to be this Saturday night in Cambridge. And you got to send me a note at amok.com. Just send me your note. Say, hey, I want to go. And then I'll put you on the list. I've got a few comps. If you want to go to it, come see me do my 5-minute story about Harvard, my dad, my son, my daughter. It's a new story, and it'll probably be part of a bigger one-man show at some point, but you'll get to see a little bit. And it's a competition. It'd be good if you came out and rooted for me. If you want to see it, go to amok.com and send me a note. Or if you're seeing this on YouTube, send me a note there and say, hey, I want to be on this. It's Saturday. I got a few comps. And it's like from 7 to 9, something like that. It's me, and I think there's like 5 other contestants who are competing, and it should be fun. It's part of the Harvard Asian American Alumni Association. So that's Harvard Asian American Alumni Association. That's H and 4 A's. That's That's quite a group. And I think they meet only every 4 years. So I was in one 4 years ago, which, I think I came in second. That was fun. Now I come back and I'm going to try to win it all. Anyway, go to amok.com. Get me your name and contact, and I'll make sure that you're on the list if you want to see the Story Slam. Saturday, 7 to 9, I believe is the time. Might be 7:30. Anyway, we will communicate. All right, so I've been talking about Filipino American history and my birthday in 118. I say I'm 118, and I'm not joking. I'm 118 because I'll tell you something. You know, you get to a point, you reach an age where you don't care about your age. You don't care about. You say, you know, I stopped counting. It's no big deal. Now that I include my father's birthday, I date back my birthday to his birthday because I lived his life. I lived the latter portion of his life. And now I recount all the years, and all the years count. All the years matter. I feel it. I mean, before I just counted my own age and I said, you know. But now I see I'm part of this 118 years. And I'm thankful. I'm grateful. I honor every year. I mean, I don't think I will stop counting now. I mean, before, when it was just about me, I stopped counting. It's my birthday. Now I make a big, and the fact that it's in October, Filipino American History Month, I really just made this realization. I used to make a different kind of joke about my father, you know, being 118 and how I would have been 90, 92 or something, you know. But now I have a better understanding about how this history works. And I think, oh my God, his story is my story and my story is history. And it starts with his birth in 1905, just 7 years after the Treaty of Paris in 1898. The Treaty of Paris, which gave the Philippines to the U.S. after the Spanish-American War. Oh, they didn't just give them. The Spanish wanted $20 million for the Catholic artifacts, the buildings. But they said, yeah, here, you have the Philippines. 20 million. That's all it took. And then from 1898, 7 years, 1905, my dad was like one of the first colonial babies because the significance was if you were a Filipino American national, if you were an American national, they didn't want to call you colonized. You were colonized, but they used a euphemism. They said, "Oh, you're an American national," so they owned you, right? You're not a Filipino national because that country no more. That country belongs to the U.S. You're an American national, and it meant you can travel without a passport. Didn't need papers. Don't need to show you no stinking badges. And you were able to come to America. My father did. Now, that's just one of the advantages. The other advantage is that they educated you. The Americans. They taught you English. They taught you Filipino American history written by a white man with a Harvard background who designed the entire curriculum. So it was like getting like a Harvard GED. I mean, really. I mean, one book. And of course, there were legit students too, who were the so-called pensionados. And they came to America in the tens, in the teens, and they studied in big universities. They were privileged. But for the hoi polloi among the Filipinos, like my dad, this was the education you got. And it worked because by 1928, he was so brainwashed, he thought, I'm coming to America and this would be great, right in the middle of the Depression. That's some good brainwashing. And he thought, hey, it's good. It's good. And all his friends would go off to the fields and work for 10 cents an hour. And he said he'd stay in San Francisco to work as a cook. I was going to say chef, and then I changed mine and say cook. And it was a hard life. In the fields, it would have been lynched or shot if he thought about looking at a white woman. There were these anti-miscegenation laws. If you were lucky enough to bring a wife or a girlfriend over with you, most people didn't, like a Filipino one, then, you started a family. But for the most part, these are men. The ratio was 14-1, men to women. And they were there as laborers. You're forgetting 1928, 1930. These men were here to replace the laborers that the U.S. excluded from the Chinese Exclusion Act and the Japanese exclusions. And the Filipinos came, 30,000 in the West Coast. That's my father's story. And he wasn't able to start a family. Not in 28 when he came, not in 38, not in 48. After the war, no. He wasn't able to participate. He didn't have the health. He was too old. He wasn't able to enlist in the war effort. Couldn't be a citizen. Got aced out of the GI Bill, the ticket to the middle class. And so what was the fate of my family? We got to relive the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, in the 50s and 60s. That was my family's life. And this is not a grievance. I'm just pointing out the history. This is the history. And that's why when I think about my life, I don't just date it to the day that I was born and, he was finally able to start a family. I date it all the way back to his being born under the American flag as a colonized Filipino in the Philippines, a colonized American national, 1905. That's why I'm 118. And that's why a lot of my friends, when I said I'm 118, they said, they laughed. They kind of got it. I sent them the essay. They kind of got it. But only Richard got it because, he would actually read the essay. He said, ha. And then he wrote that nice thing about me in Facebook. So I want to thank all my friends who said, if I left you out, it's unintentional. Thank you for your birthday greeting. Thank you to Richard for his birthday greeting. And now the story of the day remains the reaction to the Hamas attack on Israel. Israel is responding. It's more deadly. It's more dangerous. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I mean, there were people who were killed who were peace activists, members of the left. They were killed. Reports in the New York Times today. It's so sad because if you were working for peaceful coexistence, if you were working for people working together in Gaza, if you were pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli and pro-peace, that's a trifecta. Some of the loudest voices of that group gone. They were killed. And that's why I look at the numbers and I can't help but feel so sorry that the numbers are only going to rise. The numbers are only going to get worse, in terms of people killed in the attacks, people being held hostage. They had that exchange yesterday between Israel and Hamas. Hamas saying they were going to torture all the hostages if the escalation continues. Today, you got Joe Biden, President Biden, doing what he must. New York Times reports, as scale of atrocities emerges, Biden condemns Hamas attacks as evil. Biden condemned Hamas as a terrorist group and confirmed that American citizens are being held hostage. According to Axios, the number is up to 20 or more missing Americans after the surprise Hamas attack. Biden says, I have no higher priority than the safety of Americans being held hostage around the world. Biden confirmed at least 14 Americans were killed and U.S. citizens are among the hostages being held by the military group. This is according to Axios. Biden spoke from the White House after a call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The big picture, the confirmation that Americans have been killed and are being held hostage will likely draw the U.S. deeper into the crisis. I mean, this is sad because no one's going to be talking peace. No one's going to be trying to get people together at the negotiation table. Not until the numbers reach a certain level. Too high for my taste. But there are going to be no talks until this run of violence reaches a point where someone says, okay, enough. To me, it's enough already. But I think of my friend who I had this exchange with online. He wished me a happy birthday. I wished him safety. I wished his family love, peace, and safety. And, Cory Booker and Daniel Goldman, I think, was the two member of the House of Representatives, and then Senator Booker. They were in Israel and trying to find their way out. They did. My friend was supposed to come in. My friend is a Filipino American married to an Israeli. I think for all intents and purposes, he sees himself as an Israeli. Because I asked him if he was going to leave, if he was going to go to safety. And his answer, I wasn't expecting it. I thought he'd say, we're taking the first plane out. We're going to go to safety. We're going to wait this out, somewhere else. They certainly have the means. But when I asked him, he was unequivocal. He did not hesitate. I said, are you leaving? And he said, we are not leaving. He said it with a defiance and with a pride and with that kind of sense that, we've got a lot of pain to go through. We're going to withstand it. And we're not going to give up. So, I don't know how this is all going to end. But everyone knows people, loved ones who are in this. And I just hope and pray that it doesn't get out of hand. It looks like my friend was saying there's going to be a bloody ground war. He thinks it's going to be 2 months tops. I don't know if it's going to be that quick. I don't know if people are going to be that willing to talk after the kind of atrocities that are being reported now in the press. I mean, people have covered the Middle East for years to say, I haven't seen anything like this. And people just randomly being shot, the torture, and then the people being taken. You got to pray for the world. If you're a pacifist, if you are a humanitarian, these are hard times because there are humanitarian, peaceful voices that were gunned down. People who were like some of the leading advocates for peaceful coexistence. Members of the Israeli left, members who are both pro-Israeli and pro-Palestinian. You can be both. They're not mutually exclusive. But some of their most effective voices were gunned down. So let's hope that, I don't want to say we pray. Well, yeah, thoughts and prayers, of course, but We hope for the best. I mean, I really think that's the best we can say. All right, so that really is everything in the news right now. I mean, nothing aside from that. Aside from what are we going to do? And in some ways, it's good. We don't hear much about the speakership race. So that Will Hurd has dropped out of the GOP race. So that means he's thrown his support to Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley's raising more money. Does she become the new Ron DeSantis? Because Ron DeSantis looks like he's losing ground. We're not talking about Trump anymore. But, you know, that's only temporary. What's interesting is how just before people were talking about Trump and his lean toward autocracy, and they were always comparing him to people like Rodrigo Duterte of the Philippines. And I'm speaking specifically about an essay that was in the New Yorker that David Remnick wrote that was particularly, well, it was insightful because it shows you how easy it is for strongman rule to emerge out of democracy. And as I told an Osher lifelong learning group today about the Philippines, it would be so ironic if the Philippines, which was made in the image of the ideal democracy, you know, with Congress and with the Supreme Court and the Constitution, it was almost like the blueprint was there already. The United States was the blueprint. And when after the United States said, that's it up for colonialism, you can get your independence back, they essentially cookie-cuttered American democracy and gave it to the Philippines. And instead of being the model for democracy, how ironic if the Philippines becomes the model for American autocracy, as people look to it and see people like Rodrigo Duterte and see the reemergence of Bongbong Marcos, the son of Marcos, and let's slide little things like $2 million that Marcos's wife Imelda and some of her family gave to Harvard to teach Tagalog. Of course, oh yeah, you know, Harvard with its $60 billion, they could say no to it, but they didn't. And they took the money. Part of the whitewashing of the autocratic regime that's now leading the Philippines. Well, autocratic roots. Bongbong it's still a democracy there. There's no martial law. But the roots are there. The roots are there. All right, that's going to do it for today. I just wanted to come on and say hi and thank you to those of you who wished me a happy birthday. My friend said, oh, we celebrate all month. Birthdays are all month thing. So, yeah, that's why Filipino-American History Month, October, makes sense, and why being 118 makes total sense. Makes total sense. You got to include the father. You got to include my father. All right. We like to end with a little meditation because it just seems like the right thing. A little loving kindness. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Hey, if you want to go to that Boston thing on Saturday, I've got free tickets, 7 o'clock. It's in Cambridge up there on Oxford Street. Send me an email. Go to amok.com or on YouTube. Just let me know. I'll put your name down. If you want to go, it's free. It's a story slam. I tell a story about a little about my father, a little about my son, a little about the next story I'm working on. But only 5 minutes. So check it out. Part of the Harvard Asian American Alumni Association. So the ha ah 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 ha ah ah. They meet every 4 years because they got to figure out how to say it. Ha ah ah ah. Emil here. Till next time. Mahal Kita.